Welcome to Becoming Parents Podcast. I'm your host, Jennifer Campbell. I'm a doula in Washoe County, Nevada, a Medicaid provider, a lactation educator, childbirth educator, and mom of 18. You can find me and connect on doulainreno.com. Remember, give a shout out to those who are brave enough to share their stories with us on how they have become parents. Let's dive in. Welcome to Becoming Parents. I am your host, Jennifer Campbell, and today I'm on with Katherine Sellery in Colorado. How are you today?
Great. Yeah, enjoying a beautiful fall day. And I know it's not fall, but it looks like it. It's like beautiful out here.
Well, I'm jealous because it is horrible here where I'm at. So
Yeah,
I'll
we're
live
hoping
vicariously.
rain doesn't come. Yeah.
Yeah. Jump in and share your story with us about your parenting journey.
Sure. So we were living in Hong Kong. It was 1989 when we moved there, and I was a commodities trader.
Wow.
And I studied Chinese in university and speak Chinese and was acting as a commodities trader for some other things. Anyway, I was hired and brought to Hong Kong to trade non-ferrous metals, and my architect trailing husband came along, and we spent a few years in Asia, and then we ended up spending 35 years in Asia. Like, we just hunkered down, like that was our spot. We only moved back recently. But my journey really started when I had kids. And we were like seriously deer in headlights. We had no clue what to do. We had no idea. So we started taking classes and, wanted to just, get a grounding, a foundation, that stuff that was sort of the knee-jerk responses to, discipline and how do I handle this, we didn't feel comfortable with. And so the journey really started with us just, I guess, kind of learning more about our values, what felt okay, what didn't feel okay, and feeling, like so competent and capable in other areas of our lives and really not feeling good about our parenting. I mean, I'm sure we weren't absolutely atrocious or abominable, but we just didn't feel good about it. So we started to just, okay, like what's out there? What can we do? And learn from other people. And there was a gal in Hong Kong who ran a course, and I took that class when our son was about 2-ish. And my husband and I took it together in the evenings with a bunch of other families, parents. And we were so blown away by it. And it opened our minds, not just to how we communicated with our kids, but other people. And just all of the ways that we have to be thinking in order to want to implement this approach to discipline, and how we must be thinking if we want to use this approach to discipline. And it was the first time I'd had any thought about any of that in my life. Yeah. And it did completely change my life, as a matter of fact. So that's when I became engrossed in all of these thoughts about just why would I use this, or why would I use that, or what would I have to be thinking about my idea of what requires change, or why anyone, a child or anyone else, would be behaving in this way. And is it really just about this particular behavior? And I didn't know about things like behavioralists and any of that. It literally opened my whole, what would become the next 25 years of my life.
Yeah, which is huge. I remember going to college, I was 17. And back then we had what was called a freshman seminar. And so whoever your, like the person in charge of you, like from the counselor's office, right? The professor that was like in charge of your group, you had a seminar class, and mine was hunger, poverty, and homelessness, which was really cool and shaped things. But one of the things he had us do is take the Myers-Briggs personality test. And I'm like 17. Now, I've taken a bazillion personality tests since then, and I love them. But that kind of gets me to think, you were talking about values. Like, if you don't know yourself.
Yeah.
And just that, I remember reading my personality. I'm an ENFJ, the giver, to a fault.
What a shocker. What a shocker.
I know. But one of the things it said is that my personality, a negative thing, a con to my personality, is that I can be manipulative to get what I want, get my way. And I remember reading that and thinking, like, that does not sit well. I don't want to be manipulative to get my way. What does that mean? And it was a really great experience in what are your values? Because when I had kids, I manipulate to get my way. We have a chore wheel. We're gonna dance. We have a chore wheel, right? But we all do it at the same time. I help everyone and we play music and have a dance off during. I am manipulating to get my way. I want the chores done. But it really, I mean, it's a similar to what you're talking about. Like when you learn about your values and yourself and communication and all of that, it did change how I parented my kids, just knowing. And
Yeah.
at 15, I wasn't thinking about having kids or parenting or any of that stuff. But that lesson
Mhm.
about who I am
Mhm.
stick with me my entire life. So I love what you're saying about values. And what if you and your husband are very, very polar different?
Wow. And I think that is exactly what happens with a lot of parents is that their relationship with their partner is really tested when they start to have kids in ways that the relationship was never tested before.
Yeah.
And it is because, we have an idea, I guess, of what our values are, but I don't know how much we consciously or explicitly are thinking about them as we're, young and growing up. We are bathed in them because of the family that we're growing up in. And, we are learning our own values because of the ones that are being modeled around us. And we either respond as adults later in life by wanting to replicate them or doing everything in our power not to.
And there is the pendulum.
And there's that pendulum. But, interesting, like this word manipulation, I just want to spend a minute on that
Oh,
because
okay.
I hear, I've been now coaching parents for a long time. And my son, the one that, I went to take the class for, is now 31 years old.
Mhm.
So it's been about 29 years if he was 2, and that's when I started. And then he has a sister who's 4.5 years younger. And, I thought I was pretty good because I'd already had a few years of, training under my belt when I had her. And I thought, I got this. Her personality. You're laughing. I know that laugh. Her
Yes.
personality
Oh,
was so different from her brothers. And a good friend of mine, we call this child the autonomous child. I'll talk about that in a minute. But, he was the belonger, wanted to please, was really such an easy kid. And I was struggling then, to still know how to respond to the things that weren't okay. And like, what's the best way to handle that? That's what led to the, talking earlier about all the trainings. But with her, if we'd been deer in headlights before, now we were completely flummoxed. And, I'm a good many years into really big, sort of commitment to training and becoming the best parent ever, only to define in this next chapter that, wow, I was an infant in the road to like anywhere close to mastery. I was nowhere close. I was at the beginning. I was a toe dip in. And the next, I guess, really 5, 10, 15 years where I got to learn about this type of child, the one that's prepared to risk your disapproval in order to be committed to their own sense of things, which is so easy to lead us into the land of judgment, and wanting to call them, I don't know, inconsiderate, manipulative, out to get you. I mean, all the negative things that we could possibly say about a behavior that makes my life more difficult or my life uncomfortable. And I mean, I don't even know what they're going through that gave rise to the way their behavior is because I'm so focused on my own experience.
they're also called second child. I mean, my second daughter, I thought I had a 4-year age gap between my first two. Mine's 33. And I thought I am great at this. Like I wasn't,
This. Yeah.
I wasn't like braggadocious. I felt like I have found my calling. I love parenting this child. And I had a second one 4 years later, and I thought, it's different, but I've still got it. And when she turned 2, I was massively overdue pregnant with number 3. And
Mm.
she walked into her life. She woke up one day and flipped the switch.
Mm.
And I remember thinking, I am due to have a baby. Like, I can't stop this train. And I am not a great parent and do not have a handle on this. And I have no idea what I'm doing. And baby number 3 was born. And when she had her second, it was a daughter. And she called me and said, I thought you said you'd never pray that I would get a child like me. And I said, number
Oh,
2, like, I didn't.
oh.
I, I, it's like child number 2 and a girl.
Right? But it's not always number
But
2.
it isn't. It isn't.
It isn't. I had a client who said to me, she had 5 kids.
Yeah.
And she said if number 5 had been number 1, he'd be an only child.
Yeah. But it's not, you're right. I mean, I want to go back to something you said, like about her personality, right?
Yeah.
It's how her personality butts heads with my personality. And
Mm.
mine isn't superior. How
Mm.
I do things or what I do or the way I experience life isn't better or superior to how she does it. It's different, and it's different enough that we butt heads. It was also the best person. Like, that kid will never get railroaded. No one's going to convince her to do drugs if she doesn't want to do drugs. Like, no one will. She is immovable.
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah.
very hard personality to navigate parenting, but a great personality when I knew she was walking to school. And,
Mhm.
and so there's
Yeah.
that too. Like, what an amazing adult, what a tough child to parent.
Yeah, exactly. And it's especially tough to parent if you think that the traditional rewards and punishments is going to be the mechanism that you use to get this child's behavior that you're having trouble with to change. Because as you try to, let's use the word, manipulate them through the
Right.
use of rewards and punishments to get them to change their behavior, then they're going to prove to you that you can't.
Even if they want it
Oh,
badly.
if they want it, it's even more painful because now I can't do the behavior you wanted me to do. Because if I do the behavior you wanted me to do, you're going to think I did it because you made me do it.
Right.
And I can't now do it because I will never let anyone think that they made me do anything.
Right.
So in order to prove that you can't make me do the thing that I was going to do anyway, I now can't do it.
Right. And I wanted to, and I wanted the reward, and it doesn't, I'll give it all up.
Yeah.
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 So that was your second child, and you were already into all of these, thank goodness, parenting class.
Oh, thank goodness. But still at such a loss that that's when I think I became what I'd say now one of my sweet spots in terms of expertise is supporting parents who have children that are highly autonomous. And it's because I got to learn the ropes. And one of the biggest mistakes I think that I did and others can do as well, it's so simple to go down that road, is to think that because of that thing we just talked about you now, okay, well, now I can't do it because it'll seem as though I did it because you made me do it. And I'm never going to show you that you have power over me, which is that you were saying, which is hallelujah. Thank God. Like, that'll be the safety blanket for the rest of their lives.
Right.
And we don't want to get rid of that. However, it makes it tricky because we do still want to create considerate children.
Right.
And consideration of others is actually not what we're talking about here, but it feels like what we're talking about. We think that they're being inconsiderate because they're not doing the thing we asked, but we might have asked it in a way in which it didn't acknowledge their perspective. We might have asked it in a way in which it didn't actually even feel like a request. It felt like a demand. So there's so many things to unpack in ourselves around, like, where am I coming from? Am I actually considerate of their perspective? Like, am I modeling consideration? Or am I just modeling demand language and power over and do it because I said so? And, I have the power in the relationship and I'm going to use it.
I think that like we're Gen X, right? And I think that is a trait of of a lot of us also based on our upbringings
For
too.
sure.
The pendulum, the I never want to be like this. So I tried really hard not to go polar opposite, but like,
Yeah.
where you're like, I'm going to raise the bar, but the bar was so low, that part wasn't real hard. So, like, what does that mean? It doesn't, what you don't want to do, sure.
Yeah.
Okay, but that doesn't mean you know what you do want to do or how to do it, how to
Precisely.
accomplish it.
Yeah. No, then we're just
So,
at
like, heart
knowing what we're
to
not
the
going to
heart.
do.
Yeah.
And at that point, I guess you could say we're having the beginner's mind. We're beginning to be wondering and in wonder about like, oh, are there other options out there like that? That in and of itself, I would say, is a huge growth step, is to begin to think that this is actually just a paradigm. I can choose another one. This one over here that I didn't really think much about because I hadn't been in the position of parenting and really started wondering about it, that I'm now at that moment where I'm getting to think about things like, why are they acting this way? I mean, is there something other than being just, poorly behaved or out to get me or any of those explanations that could apply to what's happening here? And so just beginning to step back and wonder about the behaviors that arise, let's call them the presenting problems, the ones that are presenting to us that we find like are draining and, oh my God, I just need some rest. And that, I think, is also part of it, is recognizing that our intolerance could actually have more to do with us
Oh,
and
yeah.
whether we're resourced and whether we're rested and whether we've been taking time for ourselves, whether we're just the reason that we can only accept one behavior at the end of the day, go to bed, is that we're wiped out. So then there's this whole thing about, gosh, what I could do to take better care of me so that I have more bandwidth to be present to behaviors that are actually just a reflection of their exhaustion, the fact that they might not have had the best day ever, and that it's not even about me, these things that I make up that are, disrespectful or whatever. It's really just that they're struggling with something's going on. There's an underlying unmet need, and the way that they're expressing the underlying unmet need is maybe socially unacceptable, hard to be around, easy to judge, and ultimately none of those things. It's just the fact that they're struggling and I don't have the bandwidth to be present to their difficulty.
Yeah. And it's so hard. It's so hard to know. I think one of the things that was the most surprising, and not surprising like I couldn't have thought of it, but surprising because I don't think we realize it when we have kids, like we're going into this next phase of our lives, but I'm still creating the story, my story.
Yeah.
I'm still a woman, a wife, a sister, a friend, all of
Right.
those facets, right? Outside of being someone's mom,
Yeah.
I'm still trying to figure out life and
Yeah.
my story while I'm trying to help positively mold their story. And
Yeah.
those things conflict with each other sometimes. Like we don't
Yeah.
become parents when we have it figured out. We never have it figured out.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
It's so
it's not a
true.
destination. And I remember thinking like, I'm still trying to figure my own crap out and at the same time be there to help my kids figure theirs out. Like I'm the authority on figuring stuff out. But the goal is like we really want to help them do that. It's
Yeah.
just like the conflict between us living our own lives separate from being a mom, which is a lot of our life, right? Work and everything, and how that overlaps with our kids and them having a bad day and us having a bad day and everybody wanting to have a bad, I mean, there's so much to that where I think we put an awful, I know I did put an awful lot of pressure on doing it all right, not even knowing what in the world that meant, but like
Yeah.
basically not wanting to screw up your kids. And then
Yeah.
realizing, you know what? I
Yeah.
am certainly even though I have no malicious intent and I love them more than anything in the world, I'm going to do things to mess this up. Right.
Yeah.
And we're human. I remember one of my kids, when she was mad, she yelled at me and she's like, I'm going to be a much better parent than you are. I was like, oh, goodness. I like,
Oh, thank God.
this is what I wanted. If you could just one up me in every department of your life, I'd be thrilled that
Yeah.
I gave you the gumption to one up me. Because look, I do not have this figured out. I am messing it up on the regular, wishing I could do a
Mm.
better job. And I think a lot of parents are feeling that way, especially in a moment where you're literally confronted with either a behavior or a situation, bullying, like pick anything. I got an F on my test and I tried to ask my teacher for help and they told me whatever. Like whatever the thing is, we are like confronted in the heat of the moment with
Yeah.
issues and behaviors that like we didn't get the memo that morning. There's no outline of like, hey, prep yourself. This is going to be what's on the agenda today. No
Yeah.
agenda, no prep. We have to, in the heat of the moment, react,
Yeah.
figure out how to do that. So let's talk about all these fun things.
Yeah, no, totally. And I think that, because there's so much, parent shaming or mom shaming in particular, and, it's not just our kids who do it, right? We do it to ourselves. And then, of course, there's a whole host of other people on the planet who might have opinions about us as well, and they want to let us know about it, which is where one of my favorite takeaways from Marshall Rosenberg is, what you think about me is none of my business. And so if we can live that, where it's like, I'm having a hard enough time like managing my own inner critic. So I don't have room now to deal with you outer critics right now. Like get in line. But first of all,
everyone pick a number.
Okay with me and get to that place of self-compassion where I've moved beyond some kind of, I guess, ridiculous idea that I had to be perfect. And that I recognize also how toxic that is, not only for myself, but for all the other parts of my life, especially the one where I'm modeling it for my kids. So, put up the sign that says, if you haven't made a mistake today, you're not learning. Have it as part of your family culture that making mistakes is not only acceptable, but encouraged.
Yep.
That we don't have to be perfect to be loved, that we don't have to, I'm not my GPA, and I am, loved and accepted, warts and all, in this family. I mean, that is so much more powerful, I think, than anything that we can do with our children in raising them, is to just accept them, warts and all, to love them, and be present to all of the mistakes that we make, they make, to be able to model, like, it's so easy because there's such pressure in society. I don't know why, because nobody is perfect, but everybody seems to think you're supposed to be. And there's so little bandwidth, for the mistakes. And we're just so hard on ourselves that, it's like hard to move past. But I think if there's anything we can work on, it's self-compassion. It's,
yes. Yeah.
it's just that one piece of, can I be okay with myself? Can I have a sense of humor about the fact that I'm human? Can I just really, like, let's just dive into the human thing, let's just be okay with humanity, which isn't just for me, but for my kids. And it's also for my friends and my neighbors and maybe just anybody. Like, to see somebody falling apart and have like a little bit of compassion, like, yeah, of course I don't like what you're doing and your behavior is, falling below the standards. And I'm not going to stop there. I'm going to see past it. So I guess that's probably one of the other jewels, is for us to work with noticing that when those antisocial behaviors in ourselves, our kids, other people appear, that the first thing we want to do is take a big fat judgment and just go hog wild with all the ways in which this is unacceptable and they're bad and wrong for having done it. And instead of that, be able to say, okay, yeah, I know this script. I've got it. It's right here. This one's easily accessible. And there's other scripts. where we can go, yeah, if that's the manifestation of the unmet need, I wonder what the underlying unmet needs are. And it's going to be a longer list.
Oh, and maybe different than you imagined.
And maybe different than you imagined.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I want to like second introduce you because you're the CEO and founder of Conscious Parenting Revolution, which is why and everything's in the show notes, but just to give people some context of our conversation and where it's going. So you have done this for over 2 decades. You've been a 3-time TEDx speaker, ABC, Fox, CBS, Extra, Good Morning Washington, Good Morning Texas, over 40 podcasts. So and I downloaded your free book. You have a free ebook.
Great.
Oh, I always do. I cyberstalk my guests. I think you're great. So I'm like, this is me shouting you out. Whoop, whoop, whoop.
You're the best. Oh my gosh.
So you really took that first class when your first son was born and you're living overseas. And you took it and you kind of did what I think a lot of us are sometimes on the precipice of doing, where you're like, wait, there's more here. And you turned it into a lifelong passion, a business of the conscious parenting revolution. So when your daughter was born, your second was born, and her personality was different, and you'd had some of these classes, when did the real shift happen? Because you did. Oh, I also took commodities training, and it was really fun. It's really fun. Like, very few people, when you said that, I was like, oh, I took that. I never did anything necessarily with it, but I loved the understanding of it. So commodities is nothing like conscious parenting.
Not at
On the
all.
surface, right?
Yeah. Right.
So that process.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I continued as a commodities trader, for many decades, and being in the position I was in and sitting right on the, edge of China, and being capable of communicating. It was at a time when really people would go through traders in order to get access to that market. So I was able to parlay that into a variety of different things. And a lot of them were more passive. And so it gave me lots of time to do what I really loved, which was really learning myself. I used to say I ran courses in Hong Kong for literally a couple of decades, and I was the back to school night guest speaker. And then I would offer the class, and then the school usually gave me a room to run trainings for their parent community. And I would do this more or less 3 to 5 times a week at a different school. And that was a wash and repeat over and over and over, year after year after year after year after year, theoretically teaching the same thing day in, day out, day in, day out. And yet it was new for me every single time. And it didn't matter that it was the same material. The material is so rich. And the human experience is really what we're talking about. It's way beyond parenting. It's beyond, it's human dynamics. It's also about, who am I and how do I show up? And am I a steward of my own thoughts, as well as trying to really just go deeper in my sense of what I think and who I think I am, and the big questions on a spiritual basis. I mean, when we start opening that door to raising another human being, it is really where we're also raising ourselves.
Yeah.
And we do, like, our children will be probably, aside from our partner, that these are the people that are going to trigger us the most.
Yes.
They're going to bring up like responses out of us that we go, whoa, where did that come from? And so we begin to realize, I think, is the conscious parenting journey would take us down the path of, our children are our teachers, and they come to heal us and to give us the reflection into our own inner wounding that we are oblivious to potentially. And we either fall into the trap of, the blamer, where we want to blame the catalyst as if it's the cause of my experience internally, or we go to the next step and recognize that, oh, wow, you are the catalyst, but you're not the cause. And so while you've catalyzed this something that's arising within me, it's my opportunity to go deeper within and be with this something that's arising in a way in which I can also communicate that, I'm here with you and you're not alone. So just the inner and the outer and the reflection of the two, and recognizing that they're really, after a while, the inner and the outer are kind of seamless. They're completely connected. There is no, they're reflections of each other. After a while, you don't even know what's in and out. So, you can see it just kept unwinding, and one teacher would lead to another. And I think that's where I just found that I don't even think the journey ends, that we're just on a journey. And we are lucky that these distinctions are becoming more and more obvious.
What do you think the difference is? So you and I had started having kids around the same year. This was pre-internet. And I talked to someone recently who was like, you had a baby and they handed it to you and you're like, the baby in your body know what to do. And she was like, they don't. Like we
Yeah.
don't know what we're doing. Like, just go breastfeed and raise this baby and you'll be fine. So we went from, unless you went to the library and the catalog and you looked up books and you read them, we had no information except for people that are willing to give you their unsolicited, often disguised advice, touched inappropriately because you're pregnant, and suddenly your life changes when you get pregnant. You realize like people see you as community property, which I didn't sign up for that. And I'm very touchy, but like, maybe don't rub my belly. Hi, my name is Jen, But there's that. And then you're doing everything wrong. It doesn't matter if you cloth diaper or don't cloth diaper or breastfeed or bottle. It doesn't matter. You're going to find a critic. But we didn't have the internet.
Yeah.
And now I feel like there's so much information. They've gone talk about the pendulum.
Yeah.
Like when I had doula clients, when I was in private practice, I was like, if you're getting your information from TikTok, we need to stop this conversation. Like that, TikTok is not the authority.
Oh, that's so true.
So true. Like now they're inundated with, oh, I thought my life with kids was going to be this Pinterest board of beautiful art projects, and I'm tearing my hair out and I hate art projects actually. So, okay, that's not your Pinterest board. But I think now there's a big fear of missing out because we're inundated with so much information and overly stimulated with information, often that's incorrect, still unsolicited, more judgmental than when we had it. How have you seen the change in parenting over the last 25 years? I'm sure the issues are the same, the problems, concerns, but how is it? How's the mental health? How is the just the information overload?
Yeah. No, and it's so true. I think what I've found is that the access to information hasn't necessarily made things better.
Yeah, no, I agree.
So just having access to information isn't necessarily, in fact, it can be overwhelming. And just having so much information, and I know we're thinking we're going to find the answer there. I think we do, kind of, because I believe in, like, we have a knowing. I believe we have a knowing. And so if we just like start by staying connected to our sense of like knowingness, it will guide us to that right, the right place to click, or it will guide us to the right information as we are searching. And we may find that, if we do wander into a library, if people do that anymore, or, probably more likely a bookstore, that we're guided, there's something guiding us, right? Call it your higher self or whatever. There's something that is going to take us to take the right thing off the shelf. I know that, really, I think in the land of parenting discipline, that it's about, there are two roads. There's either the behavioralist road, And that's a road of like, we're dealing with this behavior and we want it to change. And then I would say probably like the dominant culture would say, yeah, use rewards and punishments, and you'll, reward behaviors you want to get more of, punish the behaviors you don't want to see. And that is a modality that there needed to be a big thing like warning, 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 like a big warning sign that said, oh yeah, we forgot to mention that if you use power and control, you will activate retaliation, rebellion, and resistance, the three R's. And that when you use the power and control, obedience, compliance, do as you're told, rewards and punishment approach, that when you do that, you may get that behavior to change, but not for the reasons that you wanted.
Yeah.
And therefore, even though you got the behavior, probably not long-term, but momentarily to change, you got it, and you paid a really heavy price for it because you built up a resentment flow. And that resentment flow will continue. And then we also know from the research, not only are you going to develop the three R's, but 75% of behavioral disruptions, 3 out of 4 of your problems, are going to stem from how you dealt with the initial problem, the primary issue. And now on top of that primary issue, whatever it might have been, as you were saying, like, oh my God, how many times do I have to tell you to get off your phone at night? Whatever it is. And then you decide to use a heavy hand and go into not dealing with it in a way that's going to get you ultimately what you want, is for them to understand why it's really not a good idea to be on your phone that late. And you aren't going to get a really good night's sleep. And there's a really high probability that you're too wound up to even fall asleep. All these things, but they're not going to get that. They're just going to be mad because you took it away. And this is not to say that this isn't a problem that we need to deal with. It is, and it's a big one. But I would just say we got to really be careful about how we go about confronting the problems that we know we need to deal with, so that we don't, by chance, activate retaliation, rebellion, and resistance. Not only do we lose the battle, we lose the war, we lose everything. We risk our own relationship with our children. And that's why, I just, the road, there's a fork in the road, and this way is not going to lead you to where you need to go. It's just not. And I think that learning a guidance approach, which is what I teach and other people teach, that really doesn't focus on making changes based on the use of rewards and punishment, but looking into much more deeply, like, okay, so this, behavior is surfacing. I know this is not a good behavior. I know this is going to not be good for us, him, her, them, future, all the rest of it. We've got to address it. And if it weren't meeting some needs somehow, they wouldn't be doing it. So now let's start to really dig into, like, what is this? In what way is this behavior serving them? And how can we together collaboratively come up with ways for those underlying needs to be met that are ways that are positive and that don't have these negative side effects? So, if that particular situation is about belonging, connection, things like that, then okay, yeah, there are lots of ways to meet those needs, and staying up on your phone till this hour is not the best. Yeah, I guess maybe it is meeting the need, but there's so many other negative side effects. So let's talk about it, and let's figure out ways in which you can meet all those important needs, because I want you to meet them too. And I think you and I both realize you're exhausted, and that there are a lot of things happening as a way, of meeting those needs now that are not great.
I love this. Katherine, we could talk for hours, forever. We could keep talking.
I know. We're just getting started, sort of.
Our podcast. We have a lot of ways to connect with you. Is there an easier way, or how do you recommend people working with you? What's the easiest process?
So if you go to consciousparentingrevolution.com, that's the website, you can join the Family Lifeline community.
Okay.
Which is just that. It's a lifeline, right? So you have support when you're exhausted and you're tapped out and you're just not seeing straight, right? I wish I wish for everyone a lifeline when they need it. So do that. And that's just an easy way to get into community. I have a 90-day family reset. So if you find yourself at that place where you feel like, I don't have the relationship I want, and I don't want to go one more day without it, I just don't, because I didn't have these kids for us to feel so much conflict and a breakdown. I had them because I want to be, having the best holidays and the closest connection ever. And so I'm ready to build that. So in that case, join my, family reset, which is, a really, 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 really great way to transform your relationship with your children.
Yes. Thank you so much for sharing your story and your journey and answering all of the questions. What a great conversation. I appreciate you.
So fun. I appreciate you too.